All right, reasons why this session was really cool. So, number one, we got a new character at the table. If you remember, at the moment, we're currently on the 8th floor of the dungeon. It's a swamp level. There are bullywugs, there are yuan-ti, there are nagas, and we already knew going into this session that we really wanted to take out the nagas that were on this floor, partially because we'd been kind of asked to by a number of groups and parties, but mostly because we were just killing time until the 5th member of our party could join us at the table, and we knew we didn't want to really progress too much further into the dungeon without them, so we were just kind of killing time, just tidying up a few quests in the meantime. And one of them was we knew we wanted to take down the nagas. So straight away we got this new character at the table. The former one, this player had played Halton previously, the paladin. Of course, he died facing against the necromancers, and that player was then away from the table for an entire week. So he had a lot of time to think about who he wanted to play and what sort of character he wanted. Time that he normally doesn't have because he's normally just making new characters in the moment at the table. So it showed, the extra time really showed, because the character he brought to the table was great. You know, it was this dragonborn artificer, kind of, he had like a firearm specialist, and he wore like a Texan hat, like a cowboy hat, and he spoke with a very dodgy Texan accent. So it was, it's a really cool character. We liked him a lot. And the way that we met him, this was the reason number 2 why the session was great, because the place where we met this character, he was going through some sort of hallucination. When we came across him, he was standing on his own in the middle of a chamber, just kind of swinging randomly at stuff which we couldn't see. We're like, well, what's he doing? He seems to be just attacking thin air. That's weird. And then as we tried to approach him, suddenly this hallucination came over us as well, and we suddenly found ourselves in different bodies and in a different time. We were given stat blocks by the DM. He gave us, we were all yuan-ti purebloods, and we were, as I understand it, it was actually a flashback to several hundred years ago where we were fighting against a naga. And what was really cool about this fight is that it was made quite clear to us by the DM that yes, we are literally in the past. It's not just a flashback. We are living this moment in history right now, and the consequences of that fight will be felt in the presence. So this is clearly something that the DM had come up with. I don't think this is in the actual campaign itself. So that's really cool when the DM, you know, brings that little creative flair to the table. So we were fighting against this naga. We were just yuan-ti purebloods, which have an atrocious stat block, and so it was a very tough battle, and my character got knocked out quite quickly and poof, appeared back in the chamber, watching as the rest of the party were just swinging at thin air around them. But the rest of the party did manage to pull together, and they took down this naga. And that brings us to reason number 3 why it was such a great session, because there were immediate consequences to that action. Because we had managed to defeat this naga in the past, it meant that that naga was no longer alive in the present. So there were now only 2 nagas to deal with instead of 3 nagas to deal with. That didn't mean that that naga had disappeared completely, however, because in the very next chamber we then found a bone naga. It was like a skeletal remains of a naga. Very easy to take down, I'll be honest with you, but it was one of those cases where it's like one of those fights you often get in a dungeon, where it's just a case of whittling down your resources and making you burn a few spell slots rather than actually being a challenging encounter. So yeah, we had a fun fight. Took down that boss, and by the end of it, I only had like 4 or 5 spell slots left by the end. I actually, it's one of the first times this has ever happened to me, especially at this sort of high level play. I had 0 spell slots left by the end of this session. So that's never happened to me before. So there we go. Number 4, the reason number 4 why it was a great session was what happened afterwards, was the actual naga camp itself. So having taken out the bone naga, we now had a new member in our party. We're all like, whoa, that's crazy. We had that hallucination together. How weird is that? and we got this new character as a result, helping us out. And then we were sneaky into the Naga camp. Now, we knew that they had thralls, that they had some means of keeping power over some slaves that they had, and the slaves were kind of doing their bidding. That's what slaves do, right? And they had some means of kind of keeping control over them. And so we were like, well, how about if we go in disguised as slaves? So Mama Leota, she cast seeming on the party, and we all kind of disguised ourselves to be the sorts of people that we imagine Nagas might have as slaves. So I was a deep gnome, and we had some duergar and things like that. It was mostly like dark versions of our own characters. And then we were sneaky in with Pass Without a Trace, all of that good stuff. And the actual camp itself was probably one of my favorite battle maps that I've had in this campaign. It was just a really simple setup. It's this large kind of chamber, which is clearly some sort of gladiatorial arena. In the middle of the chamber, there's this big pile of weapons from like former fights that have happened. Standing to one side, there's like a couple of trolls just standing guard. And then there's a few chambers kind of branching off, one of which is kind of like a steam room where we were led to believe the Nagas were hiding or living. Very simple setup, but it was really cool because there's like a ramp around the outside of the room, meaning that one side of the room was kind of elevated by about 20 feet, and the other side of course wasn't. And it's just those little things, changes in elevation. I always really like that when you have them in battle maps, because they can feel quite two-dimensional and flat for obvious reasons when you have battle maps as opposed to theatre of the mind. So it's always nice when you have these kind of like a bit of verticality to kind of take into consideration while you're fighting. And so we were kind of thinking how to best approach this, and we're going stealthy, we're disguised with this seeming, and we checked out the side room first, and there we found this drow who'd been tied up. He was someone who he was one of the thralls, one of the slaves of these Nagas, but he currently wasn't under their control, and therefore they had him kind of chained up. And we came to him, and we said, look, if we free you and release you, we're friends of House Ovrindar. I don't think he was with House Ovrindar. We're friends of House Ovrindar. If we free you, okay, look, we're going to free you. We will tell you where there's a portal to level 10, where there's lots of drow, because in this session we found a portal which goes to level 10 where there's lots of drow. Okay, great. We said, it's over that way. We told him where to go. We're going to free you, and we will also give you a short sword and a shield, which I just had in the bag of holding and we weren't doing anything with. So we're like, look, we'll arm you, we'll free you, we'll tell you where to go. Isn't that nice of us? He's very suspicious. Okay, what's the catch? We ask him, can you please make a diversion and draw away the guards that are in the next room, the trolls in particular? Because we were like, I don't think we can take on a couple of Nagas and a couple of trolls at the same time. We're going to have to kind of level the playing field here. Diversion. You, prisoner, draw away the trolls, please. So there's a bit of back and forth, and this drow person, as is the way of drow, he's kind of dismissive and a little bit, cutting about. Dismissive is the word. Rude. But eventually he's like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. Fine, no problem. But of course, insight check. He is lying through his teeth. He has no intention of helping us at all. He's just going to stealth his way out and disappear. But that doesn't matter, because we were expecting this. We still free him, we arm him, we set him on his way. And as soon as he's around the corner into the main chamber, we cast Shatter in the room. The trolls immediately turn towards the source of the noise, and they see this prisoner escaping, and they run after him. He is indeed a diversion, and it works exactly as planned. It leads away those trolls. Brilliant stuff. Now the playing field is a little leveled. And then we come to reason number 5 why it was such a great session, because the actual fight with the Nagas themselves was chef's kiss. Perfect. Amazing. because it was one of those fights where everyone had a chance to shine and do their own little thing, which was great. So as is my way, for example, I was straight away in the steam room, up in their faces, swinging about Bessie, my +1 shovel. And meanwhile, Mama Leota was standing near the back, being clever and crafty with magic, so she used animate objects on that pile of weapons that was in the middle of the room, just to kind of create this deadly barrier of swords. And good thing too, because our newest party member, as I said, he's like a firearms specialist, and the firearms are pretty loud, and so as soon as he'd like fired them off a couple of times, the DM ruled that okay, the trolls are coming back now, and then we have the trolls to deal with. But no, animate objects is up. She had the wand of fireballs again, and so yeah, she was able to deal with the trolls that way. And meanwhile, myself and Tix the rogue, we were able to kind of focus our attention on the two naggers in the room. And we quickly made short work of them, to be honest. The whole battle was over in, in about 4 rounds. I think the DM was a bit disappointed, because I think he thought he'd made the fight too easy, and he kept saying, I need to make them harder. But in my view, the only reason why it seemed so easy for us is because we'd actually been playing it smart for once. We'd been utilising our abilities to the fullest range, coming up with a plan, leaning on our strengths, and it worked because it was awesome. I mean, who cares if we don't get hit much in the process? Like, the fun that a party has are very often just in the planning and the execution of a good plan. So it worked, and I love that fact. And I also love that I got the chance to make the killing blow, using my beloved shovel, Bessie, my +1 shovel. I cleaved off the nagger's head. This shovel has been with me every step of the journey. It is the one thing in my possession that I ever kind of properly look after and clean and keep rust free. It's a kind of tool of my trade from my former life as a gravekeeper, kind of tethering me back to my former life. And in this session, it really proved why it was so mighty. And then we come to reasons 6 and 7 why this was a really great session. Reason 6 is what the naggers had in their possession, namely a rod of rulership that they had been using to create these thralls and keep these people under their control. Now, Gorn was in this steam room, and he was the only member of the party that was in this steam room. Okay, steam, quite difficult to see, so he was the only person that actually saw this rod of rulership. And he realized very quickly that this rod of rulership is remarkably familiar to him, because in fact a very similar rod existed in Gorn's backstory. Yes, it turns out that the reason why he fell for these con artists in his past, the reason why he fell for their lies and started following Abathor and started mining for gems even while his own family were dying, is because he'd been under the influence of this rod of rulership. Not this exact one, but one very similar. And in this moment, he realizes the truth. This whole time he'd been beating himself up about how he'd allowed himself to fall for these con artists, and now he realizes he never had a chance, and he hates himself. He's furious, and so he tucks that rod away into the bag of holding, and he vows that he's only ever going to use that thing on one group of people, and that's the exact group of people who once dared to use it on him. And Mama Leota is never getting her hands on it. Just putting that out there. And then there's reason number 7, because amongst that pile of discarded weapons in the middle of the room, the one that had been used as animate objects to take down the trolls, amongst that pile, there was one weapon that looked a little better than the others. An axe, a magical axe, +1. And the party kind of talked amongst themselves for a little while about who should take it, and in the end, they all kind of said, well, probably Gorn should take it, because Gorn is the only strength-based fighter in the party now. And so I'm a little reluctant at first because, well, I've already got my shovel, which is a +1 weapon, and I've had it my whole fight. But, you know, I mean, an axe is slashing damage. Maybe that's good to have a bit of variety of damage types as opposed to bludgeoning, which is what the shovel is. So, sure, okay, I guess I will take this axe then and attune to it just to see what it does. And lo and behold, it is a cursed weapon. It is a berserker axe. And suddenly, in this moment of attunement, Gorn realizes, oh my gosh, this is the most incredible weapon I've ever seen in my life. I don't care about this shovel that I've been carrying around with me this whole time, this remnant of my past. It's a garden implement. Who cares about that? Look at this mighty axe. This axe here, most incredible thing I've ever seen. He loves it. And in this moment, Gorn feels more empowered than ever because he has a rod of rulership, like the one in his backstory, and what is clearly the most incredible weapon in the entire world. And these will be the tools with which he enacts his revenge. All of which was just in time for us to go downstairs, level up a little bit earlier than we were expecting, and get ready for the next session when we will be in the magic school of Dwermacor. I can't remember how to pronounce it. It's a magic school. It's Hogwarts underground. And hopefully we're going to have a brand new player at the table. Yet another thing to be excited about. So yeah, really great session overall. I always love it when a session has a really nice shape to it, where you don't just like end in the middle of a combat or just randomly in the middle of a room or something. I always like it when there's a nice finish to a session, a nice beginning, middle, end. And there was a really good shape to this one, you know, with beginning with meeting our new party member in this flashback fighting a Naga, then the bone Naga in the middle section, and then finally taking down the Nagas at the end, and ending with this flashback to Gorn's own past with the Rod of Rulership, and now this Berserker Axe, which is now his new best friend. And it's just a really nice session. It just feels nice. It's just one of those, it's like if this was a TV show and you were watching an episode within that TV show, yes, that is the episode. Exactly. To be continued. I love it. It's wonderful. More like this. I will join you next week where we will go to Dwermacor and we will learn magical stuff. Until then, take care. Bye.